Hey everyone, welcome to the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg. So if you're seeing this video and you're not subscribed to me, you probably know what an iceberg chart is. If you don't, I'll just give a quick explanation where at the top is super well-known information like the theory of fake news or reptilians, and at the bottom would be stuff like God's ego death or something like that. And that's basically what an iceberg chart is. So thank you to Cicada1205 on r/icebergs for creating this chart. I just found it through browsing and it's like, hey, this would be a cool video. And yeah, let's get right into it. So first up is the theory of fake news, which it's not really a theory, but it's more of a fact because fake news is real because people put out things that aren't real and fake. And yeah, that's basically that. Next, we have the theory of big pharma. Big pharma would be the big pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson or Moderna. And the theory goes that they're like withholding cures to different diseases and stuff like that for their profit, like the cure to cancer. This next theory is Atlantis. So Atlantis is, I'm pretty sure, a book. I don't remember if that's like the title of the book, but it was a book about an underwater civilization and how it was like super advanced for the time that it would have existed and all this stuff. But people took it and they think that it was real, and there's people still looking for Atlantis at the moment. And there's all types of like big conspiracy theorists looking for Atlantis. Nostradamus was a philosopher from back in the day. I didn't research any of the dates that he would have been alive, but he was a philosopher, an astrologer, an apothecary, and a physician. And basically it was said that he was like a prophet and he predicted World War II and stuff like that, but in reality it was just like super vague descriptions on what would happen, like, oh, there will be a war at some point, like stuff like that. So the Fermi paradox is a discrepancy between the lack of evidence of extraterrestrials and aliens and stuff like that, even though the chance of them existing is very, very high because we live in a universe of just infinity, as we can see at least. Next, we have Epstein. So Jeffrey Epstein was a PDF file, and he had this island where he had children, and famous people did stuff to the children, and the Clintons happened. Basically, the theory states that Jeffrey Epstein didn't game end himself in prison, and instead he was killed by the Clintons, which that goes back to the Clintons. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was a flight which I didn't do enough research on looking back at. I'll probably add something quick in with like extra information like here. That when crossing over Vietnam and like poofed out of existence, and it's never been seen again. So yeah, conspiracies. GMOs is basically a theory about how companies like Monsanto are lying about the health effects of GMOs and that they're actually pretty dangerous for humans, which I mean, I can kind of see it. I'm not going to say that it's true, but it kind of makes sense. This one I'm going to read straight from my notes. Pizzagate is a theory relating to the fact people thought the NYPD found a PDF file ring consisting of members of Democratic Party. This then led to this guy. He came into a pizza shop with an AK and he threatened to kill people if they didn't open like the basement to this pizzeria, this just random pizzeria he went to, and the pizzeria didn't even have a basement. So yeah, basically crazy people thinking crazy things. The Mandela effect is basically like a widespread fusion of information, such as Curious George having a tail or the Monopoly Man wearing a monocle. This theory like came to be when it was said in the 80s that African president Nelson Mandela died in prison, when in reality he died in December of 2014. So yeah, basically just big misunderstanding. I'm not going to explain what a vaccine is because we all know what a vaccine is. If you don't know what it is, do your own research, because it's just basic knowledge. But basically the theory is that vaccines are set to hurt us instead of help us. Like anti-vax people saying that like vaccines give kids autism or something like that, or the COVID vaccine like having trackers or lowering your immune system or something like that to then weed out the weak population. It's big, it's convoluted, but yeah. UFOs are, again, something everyone knows about. Basically, it's said that world powers are like hiding evidence of UFOs, and they're basically trying to withhold the information that they have evidence of aliens or UFOs or any extraterrestrial beings. Ouija boards are these boards with like numbers and letters, yes, no, and hello and goodbye, and you get people around on this, like, I forgot what the name of it is, but it's this thing with like a window with like a viewing thing in the center, and you ask a ghost a question. It's supposed to move around and stuff like that. But it's there was a board game of it made by Parker Brothers where it's just a toy basically, but it's said to be used in practices of the occult, and it's said that they can open portals to like let evil spirits come through, and then they haunt you and hurt you. Crop circles are they're circles, and they're made in crops, but it's said that aliens make them as either like a form of communication or just a way to say that, hey, we know you're here, something like that. Yeah, I've never personally seen a crop circle, but I've seen pictures. But yeah, big scary aliens making funny designs in the crops. All right, for MK Ultra, I have my friend Slendrix, who is going to be coming on in a second to explain what MK Ultra is. And big thanks to him for coming on and explaining this in a way better way than I could, because I don't know how to talk, as you've probably heard.
Have you ever heard of the CIA, or more properly known as the Central Intelligence Agency? If you have, well, good for you. If you haven't, are you absolutely sure? The CIA is an organization that deals with top secret government issues, including, and most certainly not limited to, Project MK Ultra. Project MK Ultra began in 1953, around 6 years after the beginning of the Cold War. It was approved by an Alan Dulles, the CIA director at the time. The CIA had heard that the Russians were beginning mind control experiments and programs, and they wanted to take their own stab at it. Sidney Gottlieb, the CIA's own expert in poisons and toxins, was the sort of head honcho of this project. He would take drugs such as LSD, ecstasy, heroin, and other certain psychedelic mushrooms and administer them to his own patients. He would then conduct tests attempting to study the effect on these drugs on the human mind. This was all done to see if he could control, or at the very least, influence a patient's decisions. These tests were often done in secret, and sometimes without the patient even knowing they were happening. But you can't talk about MK Ultra without mentioning the case of Frank Olson. Olson was one of the CIA's own scientists, and was among one of the first scientists appointed in the Biological Warfare Laboratory in Frederick, Maryland. He had been in his hotel room one night. He not only was working with LSD, but the drug was given to him right before his death. Spectators believe that it was his own guilt of the experiments that he had done with LSD that had drove him to unalive himself, but seeing as how he is dead, we will never be able to tell. Operation Midnight Climax was yet another incident under the umbrella of MK Ultra. During this operation, unwitting men, led by hookers and strippers, would be brought into hotel rooms with one-way mirrors built into the walls. Behind these walls, the CIA's scientists would observe the patients as they were secretly administered LSD and other drugs, and studied the effect of the drugs under sexual activities. The CIA was interested in how these drugs would affect the mind during great pleasure, and that really only scratches the surface of the CIA's mind control programs. I do strongly suggest that you yourself do some research on this topic, as you can never be too sure what our own government is hiding. For all we know, we could be under their control as we speak. And with that being said, that's all the time I have. So I'll catch you later, if you still remember that I exist. Not right click.
Thank you to Slendrix for explaining MK Ultra, and now we're moving on to the next theory. Media control is the theory of one of two things, and it's either one that the media is controlled by bigger entities like larger world powers or stuff like that, or that the media is being used for mind control. And I'm just gonna say the latter theory is what they're talking about because it's cooler. And basically people are saying with TikTok, it's gonna lower your attention span, and like all these things are trying to brainwash society's youth into being more submissive or something like that, or not being able to use their full brain function. Hypnosis is, as previously mentioned, if he said it, the theory of mind control basically, and like being able to control how someone thinks or control what someone does. And like in MK Ultra, the CIA used LSD to try to control humans and see if they could make them follow what they wanted them to. So simulation theory is personally one of my favorite conspiracy theories because it just trips my brain out thinking that, oh, we could just not be real at all, and instead we could just be living in a simulation where we're just little people inside of a computer just doing whatever a math equation tells us to do. And yeah, it's a weird theory. It's said we're like not told we're in a simulation or something because it would be bad for us to know that, because then we would know that nothing's real and we could just do whatever we wanted. All right, here's another one of my favorites, multiverse theory. So multiverse theory is the theory that there are multiple universes with the same people and everything, except maybe in one universe I'm friends with like the president or something, which, I mean, that would be cool, but it's in another universe. So the Denver airport is an extremely dumb theory. Basically, I mean, I guess it's not dumb, but it's basically saying that the Denver airport has scenes of like demonic imagery, or the runways, which I looked, it is kind of weird, but the runways do look like a swastika, and there's corridors that just lead nowhere, so people think that behind those corridors that lead to nowhere are just like hidden passages going down underneath the airport for the elites to all congregate into and stuff like that. Cryptozoology is the search for animals or like creatures which existence is like disputed or denied heavily. And I'm not gonna go into this because it's not that big of a theory, but Bigfoot is a big cryptid, or like Mothman or the Chupacabra, something like that. The CIA selling drugs is also not a completely out there theory. It's basically saying that the CIA is involved in like crack cocaine trade, and how they have contacts in Nicaragua, and how they like supply drugs from there and then go undercover onto the streets of big cities and sell the crack cocaine to bigger dealers in the area, and then they basically are creating the drug problem. So the climate denial theory is the theory that we're being lied to about the impact of our own climate change in the world, and how it won't like affect us, and how they just don't think it's real basically, which I don't understand, because I mean the climate change is definitely real. Like this year we only got a little bit of snow. We got one good storm and that's it. But I personally agree with this one a little bit, because they're saying like, oh, you need to start doing stuff now to fix the climate, when in reality, if we start doing stuff now, we're not going to live to see the results. But I guess in the long run, it would be good for the newer generations and the people who are going to be born in the future and stuff like that. Reptilians are the theory that there are lizard people who are disguised as humans who try to blend in. They're said to be like the elites of the world. It's a wild one. Some people are weird. The New World Order is basically the theory that all the big world powers are trying to come together at the moment and have been for the past I don't know how long, trying to create a whole world government, basically, where we're all under the same rule of one set of people who, like, we all have the same laws, we have the same money, which would probably be a cashless society. Basically, it would just be dangerous for humans to all live under the same rule. All right, so here's one that is, in my opinion, one of the dumbest conspiracy theories I've ever heard. It is the flat earth theory. So it's basically a theory that the earth isn't round. Instead, it's just flat, just a pancake, basically, which doesn't make sense in my eyes because when you go on a plane, you can see the curve of the earth. You can see when you go to the ocean, you can see that you can't look across the ocean and see like Europe or something. And it's just a dumb theory in my opinion. The moon landing is a theory stating that the moon landing was faked, and instead of people landing on the moon and putting a flag on the moon, it was done in a studio, and no one actually went to the moon. But basically, like, people are saying it was fake because we wanted to be the first ones to go to the moon so we could have superiority over Russia and stuff like that in the space race and during the Cold War and stuff like that, so we could scare them, I guess. Area 51 is a military base in the desert of Nevada, and it's super secretive, which is why there's so many conspiracies about aliens and stuff. But just like I mentioned, the theory is that there's aliens at Area 51 that the CIA or the government or military is just hiding from us because they think it's funny that we want to know what aliens are, and they're like, haha, no. PSYOPs is short for psychological operations, and it's basically a theory that the government is putting out psychological operations to try to control us and like scare us into submission or something like that. And the biggest theory is like COVID-19 was a PSYOP, and they just wanted to see if they could convince humans to just listen. Stonehenge is a rock formation in the UK where it's said that it was used either as like a soundscape, so when wind blows through or something like that you hear certain noises, or it was used as a burial ground, or it's used for world powers to meet and do things, I don't know, or that it's just a way for aliens to communicate, which I like to think of the latter option is what it is. All right, thank you everyone for watching the first tier of the conspiracy theory iceberg. I've fully committed to this video series at this point, and yeah, if you liked what you saw, subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, but if any of you know anything that I don't about the entries in this tier, just put them in the comments. I'll pin whatever comment helps the most, and thank you for watching.